Te lo dije. A ti nada más.
Welcome everyone to the BredaPhoto Festival 2020. Welcome to this artist talk around the theme, what is different? Because being queer, or at least not heterosexual and not cisgender, is more and more out there. It is more shown, it is more seen, but is it also more accepted? This will be the topic of a conversation I'll have with three fantastic photographers whose work centers around gender and sexuality. My three guests are Jonas van der Haegen, who was supposed to sit next to me. He's from Belgium, but unfortunately his mother has corona and now he has to self-isolate. So he is in Belgium and with us virtually. Also we have Laurence Rasti, who is from Geneva and also with us digitally. And then lastly there's Soraya Zaman, who is from the US, again with us via Zoom. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to have you here. My name is Lisa Peters and I was asked to present this artist talk. I'm a journalist with a background in gender studies, and my interest in gender was sparked by the fact that I grew up in a family with two mothers. So all the ideas about masculinity and femininity that I grew up with turned out to be different later in life when I was entering the real world. This artist talk is taking place in the Brasserie, which is a cafe in the Chassé Theater. Unfortunately, the cafe is now closed. Normally, you would hear a lot of murmur behind me, but there is only technical staff with me right now. But we're happy to have this studio open. This hour, I'm first going to have a short conversation with the three photographers separately. And then we'll talk with each other about the queer gaze and where its value lies, but also about anonymity and visibility. We'll kick off with you, Jonas van der Haegen, and I would just like to say to Soraya and Laurence, please do feel free to interrupt if you have any questions for Jonas. Feel free to unmute yourself and join us. So Jonas, welcome. You can unmute yourself now, yes. Hello. So your Instagram bio says that you are a teenage girl trapped in a trucker's body, which I absolutely loved. And it is your second time to exhibit at the BredaPhoto Festival. The first time was a compilation video called Fuck My Life, which you describe as a film of a 21-year-old faggot who has no life besides Netflix, YouTube, and porn. I do have to disagree because I do think you have a life, because you are a queer artist and currently you're doing a Master of Arts at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Ghent. And right now you also exhibit at this festival with the series Love, Fuck and Pray. And you made this series in collaboration with the LGBTQIAP+ Center in Tokyo, Japan. And it is a visual research into the gay sexuality and male body in Tokyo. So this title, I do understand the words love and fuck, but why the word pray?
I think that's one of the most asked questions about the work. I mean, for me, the title was kind of like the title is very catchy, so I really like that. But for me, pray, it's not the meaning of a pure religion, but more like the hope and the kind of romance that comes back in the work, and kind of in a way honoring the community, honoring these boys that I photographed, and for me it's kind of praising them. I wouldn't say as gods, but I give them their momentum in the work, and in a way I use pray in that way.
I get it now. Thank you. Funny that it is the most asked question. Why did you travel to Japan to portray the gay community?
When?
Why? Why did you travel to Japan?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in 2018, so I always had kind of an interest in Japan and in Tokyo because, as you maybe know, Tokyo has like a rich history if it comes to sexuality, but also to BDSM. So I was always like interested in Japan and to go there. And then in 2018, I had the opportunity to go there. I could do there a residency, so that was the first time I was going there. And I went back in 2019 because. After I made the work in the residency, I felt like it was not totally complete, and that I wanted to work with someone there. So I went back, and then I did an internship in the LGBT center, which was also part of my education program.
Yeah.
And I also think to make this work kind of to understand more the work itself, it was for me also important to work with people who also actually work in that field there and could give me more information and give me kind of more behind the scene perspective on the queer scene in Tokyo.
How did you meet these men? Because I really have a feeling that there's a lot of that you went on a lot of dates. That's kind of the feeling I got of looking at the photos. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean it's true. It's so most people I met online on Tinder or on Grindr, but also I met the first year I went there. I met like a queer guy who was organizing these underground parties in Tokyo, and by going to his parties and like knowing him, yeah, I also met some people from there. And then the second year I went there, when I was working at the center, I also met through the center some people.
Yeah.
So yeah, in different ways, but I would say online most.
Mostly online, yeah. What really struck me in some of the images is the connection that you make between nature and the images of man. So we see trees at night and rocks. What are you trying to tell us through this combination?
For me, I was kind of, there are also like city landscapes in the work, but for me, it was also important to give like this contrast because if you think about Tokyo, you mostly think about like a huge city, like a giant city, and you probably think about all these lights and advertising and like the cliche image of Tokyo. But if you go even a little bit out of Tokyo, you can be at a beach or in the mountains, and for me, I personally decided to put more focus on that because it also gave for me like the tension it created between the other pictures with like these bodies, these rocks, which almost get like a connection of like the rocks in the beginning of the work or the books you see almost get like an erotic connotation. And for me, I try to focus more on that than the cliche image of Tokyo. Also because I was photographing a community there, which was not like the mainstream idea of society about Tokyo. So I thought like I also don't want to go there in the still lives or in the nature images with that.
I find it interesting because I have a background in gender studies, and there is a lot of theory about how traditionally femininity is seen as more connected to nature and masculinity is more connected to culture. And so I find it interesting that you're doing a research into masculinity and the gay body, and you make this connection with nature.
Yeah. I mean, if you look into the portraits, you could also see like how I try to photograph femininity. Like, for example, this image is like, for me, like very feminine, but not photographed in a way that it comes over like very feminine, when there are some other portraits that I took that are like an approach on femininity in a maybe like more stereotype way, with like the flowers and like this very like a sensitive look in the eyes, while the image with the lipsticks is more like very like femininity, but like in a dominant, like harder way with the flash. Yeah, I try to create in the portraits kind of like approach femininity in different ways.
Yeah. Some of the men that you portrayed that looked quite sad or vulnerable to me. Why did you portray them this way?
I mean, it was sad. It's like,
or is it horny? I don't know.
Say it again.
Or is it horny? I don't know.
I mean, it can be anything. Like, for example, the image that you're showing right now was photographed in a gay sauna, which was probably more like in the horny mood than in a sad mood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I wanted to create with this work like kind of a like put like a sad face on a queer community in Tokyo. For me, it was about like trying to make a connection with the models and trying to, in a way, like be sensitive with the models. So, yeah, that's probably why they are not all like laughing and smiling. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said in the beginning that it was also very much the BDSM culture, the rich BDSM culture and history that Japan has. Why did this inspire you? And what did you learn from it?
I mean, it inspired me because on a personal level, I'm connected in a way with it. And what I learned, I took some bondage classes there. So I learned that.
Cool. Can you tell us a bit about like what you learned in a class?
I mean, it was like the beginners class, so like very basic. And I have to say I haven't practiced in a year. So I'm not like a crazy expert.
So there are some BDSM photos or a series of photos of a man who is tied up. Did you do that, or was it someone else who did that?
No, I did that, but I mean, if you're into it, you're gonna see it's not like the most crazy, the most crazy technique. It's very, very basic. But yeah, I did that because it's also like a facet of sexuality that I participate in, and how I connect with the models on a level sometimes. Yeah. And the images you are showing right now is a session I did with one guy who I got tied up and with nipple, how you say in English, clamming.
Clips?
So, yeah, clips. So
I guess
there was a great afternoon that we did.
It was a great afternoon, yeah. Wow, yeah. What did your parents say when they saw this series?
I mean, they are not really into like art or photography, so they don't really care much. I'm
asking because it's quite vulnerable what you're saying. I don't mean to kind of contrast this, but it's vulnerable what you're showing because it says so much about you, right? It's so personal. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we don't really have like deep conversations about it. I don't feel the need to have deep conversations about it with them. So if they have questions, they can always ask. But yeah, it's like I mean, they are fine with it. It's not like a big deal or anything. So
yeah, that's good to know. Okay, thank you. For now, I'm going to move on to from Japan to Iran, or to Turkey actually, or to Switzerland actually, where Laurence Rasti is right now. She shot the photo series that got her a nomination from the New York Times as one of the best photo books of 2017. And she's here with us now. And this work is also exhibited at the BredaPhoto Festival. So, Laurence, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Yes, she's there. I'm just going to introduce you shortly. And in the meantime, we see some of your work here at the back. But Laurence was born in Switzerland from parents who were born in Iran. And because of this, she grew up with a double set of cultural codes, and maybe that is the reason that her work focuses on the influences of gender roles in society, on beauty and on identity. But I would love to hear more about this shortly. Laurence was prompted by the Iranian president Ahmadinejad, who said in a speech in the US, "In Iran, we do not have homosexuals as in your country." Ironically, he kind of turned out to be right, because between 2014 and 2016, Laurence made 10 trips to the Turkish city Denizli to photograph Iranian gay refugees. And this was put together in this series called "There Are No Homosexuals in Iran." Laurence, my first question is, why did you portray this community in Turkey and not in Iran?
I think I would. Yes, sorry.
Don't worry.
First of all, I think I never wanted to do any work in Iran, because before doing this work, I went in holidays to see my family the years before, and I realized that my eyes was too much Western, I would say, and I was afraid to stereotype or stigmatize the Iranian culture. So all the work I have done until now were always either in Switzerland or related to the Iranian backgrounds, but not in Iran, because there is so much Iranian artists that I admire, and they do work better than
What do you mean when you say Western eyes? What did you see?
I felt for myself that it was wrong to go there and, not knowing the country, try to do a work about the population, and also because, but maybe it's also because I was Iranian and I was afraid to stigmatize what I was seeing. So I let all the subject to the Iranian photographers and cinematographers that are.
And how did you get in touch with the gay community in Denizli?
It was kind of hazard, I would say. Before starting this work, so I was working on. I was doing my research about what meant femininity or masculinity. And coming from there, and the difference that I had, I was seeing all my life between maybe the gender, this binary man and man and woman gender in Iran, and the difference with Switzerland, bring me on these topics. And in parallel, I was interested about all the question of human rights. So I think the question of homosexuality was something that was, in a way, it's not about gender, it's more about sexual identity. I realized that there were an issue that was kind of important for me, and also because in Iran it was not accepted, and I don't say that in Europe it's better, but it was a little bit trying to change.
Yeah, and what is your favorite image in this series?
So I don't really have a favorite image because it's hard for me to have a distance between the aesthetics that you will see and what I know about the behind of the pictures of the people I know. I mean, the story I know about them and how the picture was made. So I've never had favorite pictures. I mean, they are all, I have emotional feeling with all of them. And it's maybe the hard part for a photographer to
It's like
yeah,
asking you which one of your children is your favorite, maybe.
yeah,
It's not
maybe,
fair.
but I mean, at least with the children, maybe you don't have to choose which one you want to show and
I'm gonna
which one you
pick.
don't
I'm gonna
want
pick
to
one
show.
for you then. Do you see the photo that is behind me?
Yeah.
Can you take us back to the moment that this photo was taken? Who are these people? Where are we?
So we are in 2014. The person on the left is the first person I have met in Denizli. So as I didn't answer right your question just before. I said it was quite a hazard. So I wanted to work on these topics, and then by trying to search Iranian lesbian or gay people, I came to find some NGO that were working, were helping the Iranian homosexual or LGBTQI plus community in Denizli. And this person was volunteer for the NGO, and he answered me and explained me what was happening in Denizli. So at this time, I had a very naive way. I mean, I didn't know anything about the situation in Turkey. And like a week after, I went to meet him, and he was the person that helped me to begin the project and present me his friends. And from there, I met all the time the friend of the friend and the friend of
So
the
he was
friend.
like your key person, your entrance into the community.
Yeah, and I'm really close friends also, even now. And so we continue to be in touch. And then the two person on the couple, I mean, they are close friends. And they told me that their wish was to get married one day.
So yeah.
When they will be in Canada. And it's why we tried to stage like a fake wedding with the suit they had bring from Iran. And
Yeah.
doing the picture was quite funny because we went to steal some flowers in the street. And
You stole them.
yeah, we cut them to some people's house. But,
what really also struck me in your images is maybe we can go to the previous image with the two men who are staging their own wedding. It is a very serious topic. You're speaking about human rights, about people who are not able to live safely and freely in their home country, and they have to flee their country, and they are stuck in this city kind of waiting for a better life. But what I feel in your photos also is that there is a lot of joy, maybe through the colors or through the props that you use. Is that something that you looked for on purpose, or is that something that also was brought out by the people that you photographed? How did that come about?
No, it's actually I would say it's not my fault.
I don't think it's a fault.
Because when I started the project, I was thinking if I want to show the situation and the problematic I had to in a way victimize them, to that the spectator, the lecturer, I don't know, that will see the picture will be touched by the gravity of the topics.
Yeah.
And by meeting all these people, I realized that they didn't want it to be victimized, and what they were sharing with me was more the reason of love. I mean, the love, why they flee the country, and the hope they had for their future. So by starting the work, the idea I had before starting it quickly changed by collaborating with all the people.
Yeah. And did you make a lot of friends?
Yeah, I have. I mean, it's hard to, like you were saying, babies, but in a way, this work, it's like, I mean, the people I have met and the friends that I have today, it's hard to keep a difference between what is the work and all the, I mean, the work. I don't know what, which person I would be without doing this work. So in a way, it's become part of your life also, and the fight.
That's beautiful.
That
you just said that for you, this work is about sexuality and not so much about gender. I kind of have to disagree because of the situation in Iran, actually, because only Thailand has a higher number of people transitioning or having gender-confirming surgery than Iran. So in Iran, it's one of the highest numbers in the world. Can you tell us a bit about why there is such a large transgender community in Iran?
Well, I think there is really also big stereotype about the trans people in Iran because I mean, Iran work in a binary system, so you are either a man or a woman, and if you are homosexual, if you are homosexual, it means that you have gender disorder, and you have to change your sexuality to the opposite one. Like this, everything come back to a binary system.
So for two men to be able to be together in Iran, one of the men has to be a woman, and then the relationship is allowed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for example. But the thing is that sexuality and gender, I mean, there is some connection, but if we and I mean, it's obviously linked on so many other levels, but it doesn't mean also that if you are gay and in love with the same gender than yours, I mean gender that you identify yourself, that you are the opposite one. So you won't be able to go until the operation and change completely your gender. Or if you do, maybe a really small percent will have a lot of difficulty of living, or it will end to suicide. Do we say suicide in English? That you kill yourself?
Yeah.
You want. And so it's also stereotyping the trans community,
I agree with you.
Then everyone thinks that the trans people are homosexual that had to change, and this doesn't give the rights to them, and it's why they call. I think when they call them transsexual and not trans people, it's a way. In a way, it's a right way for them to call it, because they don't accept trans people. They ask to go until the surgery, and we know that you have a different way of living your gender, and it cannot be categorized but in a box that everyone have to follow.
Thank you for explaining.
I don't know if I'm the good person to explain, but it's what I understood.
Yeah, it's good to know that we should not, we should problematize this narrative as if the trans community in Iran is, of course, a trans community as well. It's not merely gay people that were forced into a transition. It's a much broader and richer narrative, and not only that. So on that note, thank you. We'll get back to you shortly. But now I would like to switch to Soraya Zaman. And they portrayed a group of people who also grew up with a double set of gender norms, just like Laurence, but then in kind of a different way. Soraya is here with us from the US. They are Australian, queer, and a non-binary photographer. They used to work in real estate until they discovered the camera professionally and became not only a fashion photographer in New York, but also an advocate for the queer community. And for the American Boys Project, that is being showcased at the BredaPhoto Festival, they traveled through 21 of the 50 United States to portray trans masculine people in various stages of their transition. So let's look at a short video of this project first.
Hey there, my name is Soraya. I'm the photographer and author of the American Boys Project. I thought it'd be really cool if you could meet just some of the people that I've photographed over the last little while. So we decided to make you this little video. Take a look.
My name is Chella Man.
Hello, my name is Thomas. I'm 28 years old. I live in Social Circle, Georgia, and I'm a trans man.
Hello, my name is Sam Choi. I am a transgender man from Seattle, Washington.
My name is Tyler. I am a 22-year-old trans male from South Florida.
My name is Teddy. I represent Kansas City in the American Boys Project.
Hi, my name is Jimmy. I'm 28 years old, and I reside in Richmond, Virginia. I identify myself as a transgender male.
Hello, my name is Emmett Claren. I am a transgender man, and I am from Utah. I'm just a guy, but I'm different, and people are afraid of what they don't know.
The American Boys Project showcases transgender and gender non-conforming folks from all across the country living their lives as themselves in our society where it's sometimes difficult to be ourselves.
This project is more than a book. It's more than a collection of photographs, and so much more than a string of syllables. They create some of the most incredible stories that you'll ever read in your entire life, I assure you.
This book is really important because if I saw this as a kid, it probably would have changed things for the better for me. It's really hard to find trans representation in media, so this book could change people's lives.
As a kid, I can't even tell you how helpful that would have been to see someone like me surviving and being okay and recognizing and knowing that it's totally okay to be trans.
I want people to know me. I want to help them see that I'm not something or someone to be afraid of. I deserve a chance, just like every other human being.
Thank you, Soraya. Thanks for being here. That was an awesome video, and it's a really nice introduction into the series because there is a group of men that you portrayed, but there is a much larger community that you created with them on Instagram, I think, and I think this video kind of shows this community that you've somehow been able to build. You portrayed a trans man or trans masculine community, and all your participants were between 18 and 35 years old. So why the title The American Boys Project?
Well, similar to, it's a catchy title, I guess, and it came from this intention to call out what the internalized idea of a boyhood is, especially boyhood in this kind of, in the American framework, which is kind of romanticized. So I wanted to play off this idea of romanticized boyhood in the US and kind of expand on what that means and challenge what that means in our own minds and break down this idea that masculinity belongs exclusively to cis men.
Yeah. And most of the guys that you portrayed look really confident and free. Some of them also look a bit more vulnerable or insecure. But how did you come to kind of connect to the right energy that corresponds with the way that they felt?
Really, I mean, I found everyone through social media. I looked for people who were already kind of using that platform to tell their...
Oh, there's a dog.
To tell their own narrative and their story. And so that's how I found people who were already kind of vulnerable in that way. Yeah. And then I traveled there and spent time with them. And before I even kind of picked up my camera, we sat for a number of hours just talking and sharing stories and sharing my story and sharing their story. And then we just hung out for the rest of the day, just taking pictures. And I feel like that's how we kind of got to where we were with each subject. Yeah.
One of the things I already said is that you kind of discovered your own complex identity through your camera. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I started the project in 2016, and it really started off as a way of exploring my own gender. I was kind of coming to terms with, I'd letting go of being considered female. I never really felt female. I've always internally identified as being non-binary, but in terms of kind of exploring that, in expressing that to the outside world, I started to use photography as a way of doing that. So I started meeting and photographing some of the people in this work. And in doing so, it kind of like took on a life of its own, and I realized that all of these narratives and stories and the people who I met, there was a greater importance to kind of share these stories with the world. So yeah, it started off very humbly as just as a personal project for myself, and then it kind of grew into this whole other thing.
And can you maybe tell us about one person that you met that really taught you something about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, it happened a few times in meeting some of the people. I was in between using they, them pronouns and she, her pronouns, and I would tell the story of like, oh, if I was 16 or if I was 18, I would totally be they, that, like I would take on these pronouns. That's who I would be. It wouldn't even be a question. And one of them was just, a few of them were like, well, what's stopping you? There's no age limit to kind of making that change for yourself. And that was a real growth lesson for me, that they really kind of taught me that there's no, even though that's how I felt on the inside, there's no age limit to kind of expressing that on the outside and kind of embodying that identity for yourself. Yeah. Which was quite liberating. Yeah.
Cool. In your work, there's, I think, dozens of forms of masculinity that I see. I've been asking this question for years already, and I've never found an answer, so I don't expect like a full answer. But what is masculinity? What in these photos is like a common ground that makes the masculine?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, I'm always of the understanding that masculinity is a performance. Mm-hmm. So it really belongs to any gender, and you can perform masculinity in various strengths, or we can like various like intensity. We all do it in certain ways.
You mean like by the way we move or the way we dress? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and it is a performance. So in that sense, it doesn't really belong to anybody. But I think it's a concept that we've learned, and we take on the bits that feel relevant for us, and that's how we kind of form identity. It's hard to nail down because it's similar to gender. I believe gender is also a social construct. I feel like masculinity and femininity are constructs that we've created. Yeah. And there has become a situation where, people, it's difficult for cisgender people to access, to feel like they can embody both the masculine and feminine energy space. And so I feel like, to have the understanding that this doesn't really belong to any gender, and you can take which part you want from the masculinity and the femininity to create your own representation of your own gender and your identity
free yourself from these norms.
And free yourself, exactly, of these kind of gender norms. But to define it exactly, it's like trying to define what a chair is. It's like we all know of the concept of a chair, but it can take on so many different forms. But we all, when we look at it, go, well, that's a chair. So if that makes sense.
In portraying trans people, very often, at least when it's done by cisgender people, there is a focus on the bodies and on the transition or on the bodily experience, I guess. And I was wondering what the reason was for you to, in your book, include the amount of time that people were on testosterone. because this is included for every person. It's like 5 months on testosterone or 4 years. And I was wondering why you found that relevant information for the series.
It was really used as a marker of time. There's a note at the end of my book saying that medically transitioning doesn't make you more valid in being a trans person.
Yeah.
But the people who I did photograph had all started medically transitioning. So yeah, it's mostly just a marker of time of where they were at in terms of their medical transition, because over the course, this book was photographed over the course of 4 years, and in that time, a lot of people who I met and photographed changed significantly. So it really was kind of like a snapshot into that particular moment, and to be able to freeze it and hold it in time and space.
Yeah, yeah. Did you get a critique for this choice, or is the trans community quite understanding for this?
I mean, yes and no. I did get some people say, well, it's not a justification for anybody's where they're at in their experience. But when I explained that it's merely a way to mark a moment in time for each person, as a photo is, it kind of like captures you in a place and time and space, and then your life continues to move on. And I knew this project was going to be over a long period of time, and people would change, were changing significantly. So I think that kind of people were happy with that as an answer.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I would like to kind of open up the floor, as they say, for everyone. So if the Zoom person can create some democracy in this Zoom call. Yes, great to see you. You are all photographers who have roots partly in the communities that you portrayed, but also partly in a different community. I was wondering what this has taught you about yourself, and if through this different lens that you also have, you see something that you would normally not see. For example, Jonas, you went to the gay community in Japan, looking at masculinity, at male bodies. Gender, of course, is a social construct. It differs from culture to culture. What did you see in the Japanese culture around masculinity that surprised you, that was new to you, that you don't find in your own ideas about masculinity in your home country, Belgium?
I mean, for me, was kind of like liberating, because like Tokyo or Japan is like kind of well known for their like self-expression, and like how they are very like playful with gender and with fashion and clothing. So for me, it was very liberating to go there, in a way like how you want to like self-express and have no get not like really criticized for it in public. So that was for me something that I really liked, and what you see here and probably in the Netherlands as well, like is there is less like acceptance on that level. I feel like in Japan there is more like they kind of like how you say, like joy that you're like experimenting, and that you are playful with yourself. And here I feel like you get criticized for it maybe easier. And
as a man, you mean, or as an expression of masculinity?
I mean, as a man, but also on different levels. Like as a woman, it's totally. I mean, like if I would take like a stupid example, like for example, just coloring your hair in the most craziest colors, like there it's fine. It's they think it's kawaii, and they like it when you like experiment with it. Which here, if you would go and take a bus with like 5 different colors in your hair, like people will like look at you and maybe even say something or like
Perhaps a bit more conservative than here.
Yeah, and you know, like which is very enjoyable about Japan is this concept of respect, and I mean like respect even in public transport, where you don't destroy anything or like don't make it dirty, but also respect to other people. Like what my experience was that you rarely get like badly handled by Japanese people. Like they are always very respectful to you, and that is something which is very enjoyable. Like there is like less pressure. I mean, for me, always like going there is less of a culture shock than coming back.
I'm curious. I'm curious, actually, that with your, if I could say, queer gaze. I don't know if this is something that you experience. You have, but let's assume it's there. Do you think your series would have been different if it was shot by a Japanese photographer?
I mean, probably. I don't really have a clear answer to that. For me, I think, I mean, I'm definitely aware that I am not Japanese. I'm not. I didn't grow up in Japan, and it's not where I live. I lived there for a certain amount of time, so I'm definitely aware that I'm, as a photographer, kind of an outsider to the concept that I'm working around. But in a way, I'm still connected because I am queer, and I am in that way related to the concept. So for me, it was also like a personal journey to kind of like discover. Like I just turned 24, and for me, there is still like so much to discover about my own identity and how people express themselves in Japan and in different parts of the world. And for me, the best way to learn it is to meet people, to talk with people, to photograph with people. So for me, that's also a personal journey that I photographed and that I want to learn and educate myself in.
I'm curious, Soraya, how this works for you, because originally you're Australian and this project is in the US. At the same time, you do have this queer gaze. Do you feel that this really established a connection between you and the people you're portrayed? That it would be different if it was a cisgender photographer, for example?
Yeah, I really do. I feel like a lot of the people's who I met and photographed, their stories were my stories also, of their childhood stories of growing up and feeling like they don't quite fit in and not really having the language or the visual reference points to go, oh, that's me, or to find like some kind of like way of fitting into the world. So that's very much how we related, and that was the connection with my subjects, and it was really quite an intrinsic feeling of the same experience as a child, you know, so on that level of kind of not really having the language to describe your feelings on the inside of how you feel about yourself in relation to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
In regards to being Australian, I think that, you know, it really helped me view the American culture from an outside lens and play into the kind of Americana aspect to the project, which, you know, all of it's kind of photographed outside in nature and has a lot of different scenery and from different parts of the country. So that kind of helped me kind of tie in the understanding of American culture into the project. Yeah,
this is, by the way, how your work is showcased here at the festival. It's in the parking, so it's actually a drive-through exhibition. But on the other side, you can walk I just walked through it. It looks really amazing.
Looks so great. I love it.
Laurence, you, of course, you have an Iranian background. I don't know, I don't want to assume much about a queer identity, but I was wondering, how did you connect to the people that you portrayed, this gay community in Turkey, that was also Iranian? How did this gaze for like an outsider perspective versus an insider perspective, how did it make, how did it influence your work and your connection with the subjects? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Well, I think it's like an important responsibility and question also that I wasn't aware when I started the project. For example, being a cisgender and hetero person doing a work about homosexuality, I don't think I would have done it today because I don't know, I think the same, we are questioning a lot about photography and the legitimacy of doing a work and how the photographer places himself in front of the subject they are doing. On the other hand, for me, when I started the project, it was really on a personal research, I would say, because I always had difficulty to be defined as a woman, as first they didn't have the same meaning in Iran or in Switzerland. And
what was the difference in meaning then? Can you give an example of what you found difficult then, or what you...
Well, for example, in Iran, I would have to behave in a sort of way in front of the man, which was really annoying for me, or saying some of the things that I was fighting in Switzerland, for example. I don't know, things like you have to sit like this and not be men spreading. Well, I was doing woman spreading, and this was something that I couldn't do, for example, that it's not right, or serving tea for the men, or all these kind of things. And in Switzerland, it was, I mean, other things that women have to do, like, I don't know, the hair body, or the way you have to stand and talk. And I because I had a lot of, and I still have difficulty with this heteronormative way of seeing the world, and also this binary way. I mean, I know that I'm a female, but the meaning of woman, it's something that I continue to work on, because for me it doesn't mean the things that I read about, and but until now I mean I still define myself on the definition that we take. I
found your series very interesting. You made a series about what your life would be like if you had been grown up in Iran as a woman, right?
Yeah, this was a really old series when I was a student, but
You staged your own wedding?
Yeah, I took some pictures of my family, and well, I didn't know you will show that. And
sorry, I should have warned you.
And it was really, I don't know, it was, yeah, I never talk about this project, but it was a way of thinking of, I mean, there is things about identity and also the immigration that came in my work. I mean, when you ask me why I didn't do the project in Iran, I think it's also because they are in a moment that they are not either in the Western country, but not anymore in Iran. And for example, being born in Switzerland, for me, it's only something of chance. I could have been born in Iran and not be allowed to travel the world and have to be stuck in another definition of
your life would have been very different, probably.
Yeah, and then there is also a lot of things related to inequality and rights that happen really by chance or chance. I don't know. So it's things mixing in the projects.
I want to talk a bit about visibility and anonymity, and I think it's also linked to your work. But a couple of weeks ago, there was a Nigerian photographer here, a non-binary person, Dendilian Ngosa, and she said in this artist talk also that there are many people in the world who cannot love who they want to love, and she was wondering herself, who do we become then, and how do we navigate queerness in an environment that makes it difficult to be ourselves? And Laurence, I read that when you started working on your series in Turkey, you tried to find people who wanted to show their face. We often talk about visibility as if it's empowering, but actually for your subjects, if I can say that, the people that you photograph, it was actually the anonymity that was empowering. And when did you find out that for them visibility was not empowering at all?
I think it was because they couldn't at that time be out of this anonymity. So at first I was looking for people that would testimony in a way of what they were suffering by showing their face as this testimony. And I realized that I couldn't find these people because either their family didn't know why they had fled the country, either they maybe wished to go back one day in Iran without having the problem because they don't quit the country because they wanted to quit. It's because either something happened or their life couldn't go on and they were living in fear. I mean, a lot of problems, of course, but you never want to never see your family again. Again, it depends on how it went in your life. And so I realized that I had to keep this anonymity and I had to find a way of showing their individual identity without showing their face. So it's why the staging image came in the project, because they are the finality of a lot of time spent together and the informal interview that we made where I took some element of their life or their personality and tried to use it in the picture, and we try to build it together, so it's like a collaborative way.
I have to. Sorry, I want to make a connection with Soraya's work, because I think visibility has a different connotation in your work. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. In the visibility element with the community that I work with was really as a way of affirming this trans and non-binary space. There's something really special about being able to see people like you and represented in media and see it in a kind of affirming and positive light, and people who are kind of living their lives in different parts of the country, with whatever they're doing, and being like happy and successful, and instead of this kind of narrative of trans people who you only really hear about the tragic stories in the media. So yeah. And there's something really great when you're a kid and you see yourself or see someone like you, and it kind of, or you haven't figured out that that's you yet, and you can see a picture and you're like, oh my God, this is me, this is who I am, and it's really powerful to kind of break down this idea of like, this,
you talked about
when you're not represented,
you talked about aha moments that some of the people that you interviewed and photographed had.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people spoke about finding videos on YouTube, and then yes, having these aha moments, as you said, where they're just like, oh my God, this is me, this is who I am, and all of a sudden, their lives just kind of made their sense, or their internal feelings of themselves kind of came into light, and it really helped them navigate becoming their true selves. Mm-hmm. and that happened for me at some point as well. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is who I am, because without it being shown to you in some way, then it's hard for you to kind of get there yourself. And I feel like the representation of trans people in media is much better now than when I even started the project in 2016. So I think it's kind of this beautiful snowball effect that that's happening. So I'm really happy about that.
So I think this brings us back to the question that we kind of started with, that being queer is more and more out there, it's more shown, it's more seen. Is it also more accepted? Do you think that your work adds to acceptance? Is that the way to go, Jonas? You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. So, I mean, for me, the first time when I went to Japan, I didn't really have like a clear idea of what I wanted to pursue with this work. But after going for the first time and then going back to the LGBT center and work there, for me, it kind of came to a realization that, okay, this work is in a way personal, but also reflects on a brighter public, and could also be used as in a way like an activistic work. So in a way, I tried with these portraits to give kind of a visibility to community which is like not much represented in mainstream media. So in a way, I think I bring in that way like visibility to that queer community.
Yeah. Laurence, you wanted to say something. I saw your finger.
Yeah, and I forgot to unmute for saying that I wanted to say something. Yeah, I just wanted to add something about anonymity and visibility.
Yeah.
I mean, Soraya, if I'm not wrong, said that the people photographed were already active in a way on the social media, and it's the way you find them. And on the other way, the people I photographed couldn't get out of the anonymity. So the important part is maybe to respect either their safety or what they can offer to a project that already is something important to get to take out the marginalization of the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Our projects are really, coming from two countries where politically are really different, and what's allowed, what's permitted here is kind of really, you can't really compare them. So, I often say, with any kind of queer person, if you get this narrative of coming out, but only do that when it's safe. Like it needs to happen in a safe space, in a safe environment. And yes, in a sense, I did find people who were already sharing that story of themselves. So I wasn't kind of in a way like outing people or presenting them in a way that they would feel in any way uncomfortable, because they were already kind of doing that for themselves.
Yeah.
So
On
really
the other hand, maybe if it was people that didn't make their coming out or couldn't share it, then you will have also to deal with anonymity and other questions.
Absolutely, and that's not a position I would ever put myself in. That because it's up to an individual to come to that, to get to that process within themselves.
I think on that note, we should end this conversation. Being queer is more out there, and I think we can assume that is a good thing, unless the person themselves has also agreed to be out there, and only then there is empowerment. I want to thank you very much, Jonas van der Haegen, Laurence Rasti, and Soraya Zaman, for being here today with us. Keep up the great work, and I hope to see you sometime in the future, maybe at a future BredaPhoto Festival, and otherwise virtually somewhere else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was the artist talk on what is different. Next week we will close BredaPhoto 2020 with a festive show. It's also on Sunday afternoon from 4 to 5:30. It will be a special afternoon. The host will be Lucas de Man, and there will be guests from all over the world. And one very special guest, and he is the man behind the music video that has brought us so much joy the past Sundays. Maybe if I say the word Zurumbatiko, it will ring a bell. We will meet him next week. And for now, I wish you all a very pleasant Sunday. Thank you for watching, and see you next week. Thank you.
Zurumbatiko. Zurumbatiko. Ok. Bueno, chao. Zurumbatiko.
Allá viene un muchacho como loco, allá viene por la quebrada con su palito de ron. Allá, los ojitos rojitos viene cámara lenta del timbo al tambo. Del timbo al tambo. Vaya. Rápalo. Allá viene un viejito por la orilla, allá viene tremenda rumba de rapacanilla, con los pasitos como culebra siempre palanteando, vacilando con calores, viene como quemando disimulando los dolores, viene así de colores, viene su... Tiene el amor de cabeza, viene como enigmático, llenito de tristeza, sabroso, ladronzuelo, viene el corazón bailando al son del cerebelo, viene así como Lelo, viene su... Sabroso, ladronzuelo, viene el corazón bailando al son del cerebelo, viene así como Lelo, viene su... Vienen los extraterrestres. Ay, Dios mío, que me lleven. ¿En serio? Ah, bueno, ¿me pueden llevar? Ok. Bueno, chao.
Surumbático.
Sí, ¿usted está surumbática?
Sí. No,